When it comes to international crises, the United Arab Emirates assumes a big role to terminate them. This was obvious this week during the United Nations Security Council meetings regarding the fighting going on between Russia and Ukraine at present. While the UAE did not support a resolution against Russia in the Security Council, it still had its logic and rationale in taking such an action. At the same time, the Emirates is working very hard to establish peace between these two nations.
I think the United States is not going to fight this war for Ukraine, but what the United States can do, and what we have an obligation to do, is give Ukraine the tools it needs to protect itself from Russian aggression. That means providing anti-tank weapons. That means providing Stinger missiles to take out helicopters and aircraft. And it also means providing intelligence information to our Ukrainian partners that they can use to defend themselves. I think we've been providing some of this, but the United States and all civilized nations need to step up and give the Ukrainian patriots who are defending their country every bit of support that we can.
On Friday, February 25th, the United Arab Emirates abstained in the vote on a United Nations resolution criticizing Russia's military action inside Ukraine due to the fact that it desires that the UN can pursue more the effort to find a diplomatic settlement to that armed strife. Russia vetoed the resolution. In addition, China and India abstained from the vote.
I think what we're seeing in Ukraine is proof that sanctions work. When the United States imposed crippling sanctions on the Iranian economy, we saw the regime's ability to export oil go down dramatically. We saw the value of the currency decline dramatically. And we're seeing the exact same thing happening with Russia being subjected to severe international economic sanctions. If they're good enough for Russia, and if we think that they can change Russian behavior, that confirms that those kinds of sanctions are good enough for Iran and are capable of changing Iranian behavior too.
UAE Permanent Representative to the UN, Lana Nusayba, addressed the Security Council stating that the serious developments in Ukraine, we will agree, undermine the international peace and security, and the UAE calls on all parties to respect international humanitarian law, prioritize the protection of civilians, and allow for the unhindered delivery of humanitarian assistance.
I think the partnership between the United States and the UAE is a partnership between countries. It's not a partnership between parties, it's a partnership between countries. And it's a long-standing partnership. We're very, very close friends with the UAE. We've become economic partners, defense partners with the proposed sale of F-35s. There aren't that many countries around the world other than NATO members who are eligible to buy that level of sophisticated American defense equipment. And I think it's a sign of how close these two countries can be. And I hope that the UAE sees the value in the relationship as well and is prepared to join the United States in standing up to Russian aggression.
In analyzing these careful diplomatic measures, there has to be a reference to the hesitation and confusion of the Biden administration regarding what is happening in Ukraine. Moreover, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed's statement about the Democrats in power as unreliable partners is very thoughtful, as it describes the strategic quandary many countries are perceiving in America not acting decisively to stop Rouge states.
Designating the Houthis as a terrorist organization is the right thing to do. It's clear that they meet the standard of a terrorist organization with the attacks that they continually launch on our friends in the Gulf, including the UAE, and including Saudi Arabia. It's also the case that failing to designate the Houthis has done nothing whatsoever to bring them to the negotiating table, to bring the war in Yemen to a conclusion. But it's also the case that because that designation is important to our friends in the region, we need to take their requests seriously. The United States makes requests of our friends and allies and partners, and in a spirit of friendship, these countries often say yes. And it's important for the United States to reciprocate when something is important to a partner country, to look very closely at the evidence, to look very closely at the broader strategic objectives, and make a decision about what will advance the U.S. interests, while also keeping in mind the importance of these matters to our friends and allies and partners.
For instance, the Biden administration wants to lift the sanctions on Iran because it's useless when it resorts to them against Moscow. Of note, no one criticized India for not supporting the UN resolution condemning Russia. Additionally, the Biden administration has done little to stop the Houthis' attack against the UAE. The foreign policy of the Emirates is balanced. It articulated a national interest that advances peace and stability in every region of the world. Hey, Maria Malouf here. Please click to like and subscribe to Maria Malouf TV YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.